welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kiva. Today I thought I would give some tips for new players on how to build a character for a D&D campaign, because I know when I started I was super nervous. Obviously this isn't gospel and it's all just my opinions. Most of these come from my own experience. I've played a few homebrew games growing up with my cousins, and I'm now in my second campaign of 5e. Some of this also comes from advice picked up from the Adventure Academy podcast, hosted by Brendan Lee Mulligan, available on regular podcasting streaming apps, or Dropout if you want the video as well. Each episode has a theme, and the guests are players and DMs, all providing insight into different ways to play and how to make the game fun for everyone involved. Usually the first thing I do is 1. Get to know the world. I think it's important to understand what kind of world your DM is trying to create. Is it steampunk, post-apocalyptic, high fantasy, low fantasy, sci-fi, goofy, serious, deadly? Basically, vibe check your game master. I think the game is 10 times more fun when you make a character that fits comfortably into the world and lets you take advantage of different settings to create something you wouldn't have otherwise thought of. I think this comes into play more significantly with homebrew. Our DMs put a lot of work into these worlds, and while I don't think you should negate your wants for the game completely just because of the uncomplimentary setting, I think it increases the excitement tenfold when your DM sees that you're getting into the theme as well. Next, I usually think of 2. What will translate well in-game? Well, it can be fun to play a suspicious loner or a no-thoughts head empty barbarian. You have to keep in mind how it will affect your fellow players. Sometimes you get a really cool idea for a character, but the reality is that playing them stalls the game or constantly causes grief for your fellow players, or just stops being fun for everybody involved. If you're confident you can play them in a way that will remain fun for everyone, then I say go for it. But just keep in mind, this is a cooperative game, and player and DM alike should be enjoying themselves. This segues quite nicely into 3, balancing a party. This is less of a priority, but just something I always try to do. This is more class focused. For anyone who doesn't know, you have gender, race, and class. So the race is obviously what species you want to play, being human, orc, elf, etc. And the class is like fighter, barbarian, cleric, etc. So that's what I mean when I say classes. For me, the class is pretty significant to who the character is. The idea is, try to get an idea of what everyone else is thinking of playing. If you've got mostly spellcasters, it might be a good idea to try a weapon-focused class. If your party is more squishy wimps, think about being a tank or a melee character. No healers? Maybe you should focus on that. This is just something to keep in mind. If you have a class you're really itching to play, I say go for it. There's usually a way to make it work. 4. Put something of yourself in the character. If you're just starting out, it's much easier to play a character that feels familiar or that feels closer to yourself. Role-playing or talking in character is always awkward when you first start out, and it takes a bit to find your feet as a character, like how they would talk or phrase their sentences. It's much easier when your character is closer to how you would act yourself. But it can also just be small stuff, like having a short temper, or the same accent as you do, the same fears, whatever feels right. Which reminds me, I say like this whole thing isn't scripted. 5. Backstory/motivation. Some DMs ask for this themselves, others don't, but it's always good to go into a game with a bit of backstory. Where you come from, maybe who your parents are, how you came to be the class that you are now. This includes your motivation. Your character needs a reason for doing what they do, and more precisely, why they're traveling the world, why they would agree to join the party, and why they would act as a hero. What's their goal? Were their parents murdered and you're seeking vengeance? Did you always dream of being a hero? Are you searching the world for a long-lost sibling? It doesn't matter how big or small, it just has to be something. And this is just me, but I always make my characters a little shit when I begin. Give them a weakness or a pretty big character flaw, just so they have room to grow and develop as a person. And that's kind of all I can think of for now. But if you have other questions, feel free to ask me in the comments below. I mostly focus on personality and character building when I make a character. I'm not really focused on how to balance stats well and what race and class make the most dynamic duo. So I don't know if I can help you very much in that respect. But you can always listen to Adventuring Academy or watch the Critical Role and Geek and Sundry YouTube. They have some useful tips from more seasoned players, since I've only been playing weekly for a couple years. I hope you all have a fun game and a good day. Stay safe and well. I got a little roll with pride pin. Isn't that cute?